Welcome to all. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening. No matter where it is you think you are, let us tune into this moment now, remembering that the only time that is now. The past is over. The future is yet to come. Center into this moment now, releasing all thoughts of distraction, all distracting things. Just let them all go. Just let them drop and be here now. So, we are here and you are as well. So as you know, this is the time of awakening, which we will also refer to as the time of release. We say it like this because we want you to begin to learn to really release your concepts of yourself, which would be your separate identity, the you that you made up, to separate from your true being, who is always one with God, who is love. So, we want you to begin to practice awareness of when you choose to think thoughts of separation and change your mind rather than continuing on with them. It does take practice. It does take consistency. It does take commitment. Be patient with yourself and with all. Be loving to yourself. And to be loving to yourself does mean to be patient with yourself. It also means for you to choose to wake up. So, we can go on, and we are certain we will throughout this session. We are also aware that many questions have been sent in, and we are ready for those now. So,
the first question is from Carrie. And Carrie asks, when on earth you said we would do the works that you did, and even greater than these. You also said that the last enemy, death, will be overcome. I've been told that I must awaken from the dream while I am here in order to not have to reincarnate and try again. Is this true?
not quite. So we'll just start with that. Do you have to wake up right now in order to stop coming in here? Not necessarily. That's always a choice. We want you to realize that's not something that's thrust upon you, but is something that you choose, you see. There are many different experiences you can choose from. This is, we'll call it, the most intense classroom of all of those you can choose from. But this is also the most expanding classroom that you can choose from, meaning you can become as brilliant as a diamond whilst going through this, as we referred to it, to the channel before, pressure cooker. We're certain you can feel that. But really, that's to get you to open yourself to really become all that you are, you see. And really, you are already all that you are. You just don't recognize it while you're here. Does that make sense?
Yes. Yes.
We kind of got off, but it's very exciting to talk about the you that you really are, because actually the you that you really are is more vibrant than a diamond. But you can think of it as how a diamond is made in the illusion. It has to go through pressure in order to come out shining. Does that make sense?
Yes. Yes.
And so you wanted to come here because you wanted to come out shining more vibrantly than you ever were before. You see, so it's a choice. Do you have to fully wake up right here now? No.
I mean, like while I'm in the dream? Do I have to wake up? So not right this second, but like,
We understand. No, that's up to you. We really want you to understand that it's a choice you make. And the you that we're talking about is the whole of you, you see. Does that make sense?
it does. So if the whole of me is already a drop in the ocean of God or a ray of sunshine, whatever, how how would coming here make me more vibrant?
That's not something we could explain in words. It just is.
Hmm. Okay.
Because
When
when you're thinking about it right now, you're thinking about it in the context of here in this plane of existence where you believe in figures and separation and linear time. Okay? The you that we're speaking of is not even part of it. It's beyond that, you see. It's not something that you can truly comprehend at this point. You might get flashes here and there, but you can't entirely see the whole of it all because it's too intense for you at this point where your mind is. Does that make sense?
yes, yes. I liken it to like well, I tell my grandchildren that it's like you are not even as big as your fingernail
Yes.
in comparison to the real you. You are so much bigger than you think you are. You're um is that a good way to kind of phrase it for a child?
Yes, it's a good way to put it because there are no words to be able to explain to anyone the magnitude of you, you see. As you truly are, there are no words. And it's difficult to tell a child, you just is.
Yes, yes. So shoot, that's not have been important. I thought it was.
And when we
Oh,
said that which I did, you can do greater, it means that you're always expanding, you see.
so I'm always expanding to do.
It's not really a doing. That was the way that we were able to express it at the time. It's not a doing, but it is a being, you see.
So then is the Course in Miracles literal?
Yes, it is. It really is absolutely, truly literal. That's why it's not an easy course. It's
Perfect.
also misunderstood a lot of the time. That's what also makes it seem very difficult. Because usually egos are reading it. If you didn't have an ego, none of it would bother you. It would make complete sense and you would be done. Does that make sense?
Yes, yes. So when things come up, for example, um, yesterday my granddaughter got burned really bad, and I'm at my parents' house helping my mom, and then I was having this false sense of responsibility that I wasn't there to help with, the other kids while they took her, and so just trying to stay focused. The best that I can do is to go within and find peace within
Yes, and
to help
also
them.
and be kind and not take it too seriously. See, what happens is this is how we will explain it to you. You are also identifying also as your granddaughter, which means to see her as a form that you're responsible for rather than knowing her, knowing with a capital K, meaning seeing her as she really is, which is spirit and which is a mind. Now, it is something that happens throughout this dream experience. There are bumps and bruises and mishaps and all of that. That's part of the class, you see. So she's just experiencing that. And what you do is you learn how to respond to those situations rather than go out with a reaction. You choose peace over conflict and so on like that. Does that make sense?
Yes.
And so, of course, in order to help her with that, you want to exemplify a mind of peace, you see.
I'm in another city at the moment, so like to be helpful for them, just to be at peace and not be stressed here in this other
Right.
city because there is no place or time. It's
And
just
don't freak out. Don't freak out, because if you freak out, she's going to freak out and everybody's going to freak out. And you're saying what happened to you is real. What
right,
happened to you is a problem, and you should also be upset. You see?
right. Hmm.
When really, okay, honey, these things happen. I'm so sorry you got burned. It's going to heal. You're going to be okay. In fact, you could look at this and say, I can grow stronger from this. You see? And I won't make that mistake again, or whatever. Does that make sense?
Yes, yes,
So you
yes.
don't want to put on a full display of upsetness, because that will influence the mind to think that one should also be upset, especially when they are young. They are very, very easily influenced, you see. And if you are projecting the attitude or the mind of conflict, they're going to pick that up, you see.
What about
What you really
denial?
want to do is, in those situations, any of these situations, is, okay, these things happen. I went through these things myself in one way or another. I certainly, as a child, had bumps and bruises and all that, and I survived. She's going to survive as well. So what would be most beneficial to her is to see that you love her and you care about her in a peaceful way, and just be logical in your own mind and say, okay, these things happen. It's a part of this dream. It's a part of the experience that she actually signed up for, you see. Does that make sense?
Yes, it leads me to question my egoic self, myself, my lower self,
Well,
because
you
I feel like
should. We're just going to say that real quick. You should question that lower self. Go ahead.
so I wonder, like, denial of the problem, is that a good or a bad
No,
thing?
no, no, no. When we said to exemplify a mind of peace, it didn't mean pretend like it didn't happen to her, because it did on the
Okay.
level of the dream.
Okay.
And so her experience of it is, this happened to me, it was painful, but the more that you get upset about it, the more it's telling her that this situation is like you're going to die.
Right.
And you don't want to give that. You want to give her, this is just something that happens. I went through all of these situations myself. The best thing to do is just be more careful next time, you see. So be loving to her, but
Mhm.
don't make it bigger than it is.
So back to the question you said about that we don't have to wake up while here in the dream.
Well, you do want to wake up. When we said that, we don't have to completely say, aha, I am awakened. Because the process still continues. You see, you
Yes, we
came
have to
here
be
to
the
wake
light.
up certain aspects of yourself that you wanted to heal, you see. You wanted to release, you see. So you set these things up in order for you to get triggered in certain situations so you could learn to change your mind about your situation in those experiences. But yes, so when we say you don't have to wake up completely during your lifetime here, that's true, but it doesn't mean stop the process of going forward toward waking up. Does that make sense?
Yes, and it's also being the light for others to.
It's being the light, but you don't want it to be for others. You want to be the light. Do you see
Right.
the difference between being the light for others and just being the light?
Yes, yes,
Being the light for others says, we are separate. That's true. I am the light for you. So
right.
we're separate.
We are the
Really,
same.
I am the light. We are the light. You can also choose to be the light. You see.
Okay, well, I hope I choose not to come back again, but if this is the most distinct classroom, I can understand why we do come back, I guess.
Right.
Because we want to get it done quicker, in my thought.
That's your thought, yes.
And the ego thought, I want to get it done quicker when
That's the
they're
funniest thing, though, with the ego. You want to get it done quicker, but the ego doesn't want to die, which means that it doesn't really want you to get it done quicker. It just wants to harass you more so that it can still exist, you see. It wants to keep its existence, so it wants to hurry up, Carrie, hurry up, and get this over with, and feel complete dissonance while you do it, so we can hang out together more.
Yes.
So laugh it off.
Yes.
Be patient with yourself and the process. Allow it to unfold and just take the steps of release. Remember how we said we also want to talk about the time of awakening as a time of releasing, because you want to begin to really release the identity that you made up that is a product of separation, you see. So
Right. It maintains that I succeeded in separating from God, which was not possible.
absolutely. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So
The next question is from Catherine. And Catherine asks, are our star families also our guides, like the angels? And why would we not refer to them as angels? Is it to understand the different layers of help and perhaps who tricks whom?
well, we're going to say that yes, they are also guides. You could think of them like angels because they are non-physical, the guides, but at the same time, they are an entirely new experience, so to speak. It's hard to explain, meaning there are no words to explain it, but there is a distinctness between angels and extraterrestrials, you see. Does that make sense?
Yes, hello. Thank you for taking my question. So, you know,
It's a little hard to hear you.
okay, is that better? Is that
That's
better?
better, yes.
Okay. It's just, I suppose, just trying to piece things together, sort of, so following on from Kerry's question, it is tough here on planet Earth, as
Yes, it is.
we all know. So I'm sure when we do decide to sort of like participate in this game, we need a lot of help.
Absolutely.
So we've got, so what would the difference, so who would my guides be? Would I sort of qualify for certain guides? Would I qualify from my sort of vibration? Who would I be able to link to in say the extraterrestrials, say from different stars, that maybe are trying to bring other information in? I know it's very complicated.
It is complicated, but we'll just say it like this. You chose your guides before you came. Together you decided that you would come here to awaken, and they would be your guides. And when we say they, it's whomever your guides are, you see. So angels are your guides no matter what, you see. There are some who decided to come into this experience from what you would consider another planetary system. The reason why we don't talk about that is because our message to you is that that too is also illusion, you see. So all of this is illusion. Whether you're from one solar system or another solar system, it's still the same on the level of illusion, you see. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does make sense. But why would we, so who are our guides? Are they like, we all have angels. So I imagine I'm sitting here, so I have like a hierarchy of angels are going to help me, and then I have set up my guides as well. So who would they be?
We couldn't tell you who they would be. What you can do, though, is to tune in. Let's say you do a little meditation where you just center into yourself and just open your mind. Okay, guides, I want to hear from you. I want to know who you are because I want to work with you closer. Does that make sense?
Yes, and so you're available, the angels are available, the guides are available,
100% all the time.
and they're all sort of one but separate.
Absolutely. Well, they are not. We are not separate. We are not separate, but we may appear as different entities because it helps you. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Well, yes.
Because while you're in the dream, you believe in separation. So you believe in individuals. You are an individual that you consider Catherine.
Yes.
And then you have others in your experience, you consider other people in your experience. Well, it would be difficult for us to come through, or for the angels to come through and be completely formless and just speak to you and you not completely freak out. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Or completely block just because it's too overwhelming. So what happens is, it was understood that the way to reach and communicate with those in the dream, there had to be something that would be softer. And that would be those who would appear to be different and separate only because it would be more comfortable for you. Does that make sense?
Yes. No, that does make sense. So I'm just sorry to bang on about this, but it's been a subject of deep curiosity for me. So say someone from another star system wants to communicate with me and they are perhaps not quite human-like. They might appear as something different. Let's say, I don't know, whatever. You could pick anything. Mantis, insecticide, I don't know, whatever. What would they choose? Would they choose to sort of appear in that form that they are from the place that they come from?
They would, if they want to communicate with you, a lot of the time they will take a form that would be most comfortable to reach you. Again, does that make sense? It's the same concept, that they couldn't necessarily come in fullness because that might freak you out. And so they might take on a certain form that would be more comfortable to you. Does that make sense?
Okay, so it doesn't really matter as long as they're loving.
Absolutely.
And any mischief makers, you can just say, go away.
Yes, indeed. You can say, not for me.
No, thank you very much. I mean, it just leaves me with more questions, but I think there's other people.
Don't forget to tune in and ask your guides. They're ready to answer. So.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Next question is from Katrina. And Katrina asks, it's a two-part question. Catholic belief says we are sinners and to pray to Mother Mary to pray for us sinners now and until the end of the hour. Is there a benefit to seeing ego as sinner, that we don't fall into the ego story, that we may stay humble, reminding ourselves that the ego is unreal and yet can make us dream of sin?
Well, the first thing we're going to say is, as far as that question about making the ego a sinner, it's not a good idea to do that because that makes the ego real. So what you want to do is just be lighter about it. We understand the way that things are described in Christianity and in Catholicism is very, very, very hard and very firm about this. So just shake that off. You don't have to go down that route. The ego is a lot lighter when you take it lightly, meaning you don't take it seriously. It's just something you made up that you can let go of. Does that make sense?
Yes, it makes sense.
Wonderful. So don't make a big deal out of the ego.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you.
The second part is, there was a story of Kundalini awakening in this dream body, and the ego took that story and created immense agony and confusion for the last 6 years. A Catholic priest performed an exorcism saying the Kundalini is demonic possession. The little I in this dream agrees in a way to that, as there was destructive and unloving violent energy for 6 years. But I now see that as the ego taking ownership of the Kundalini energy, that it was not demonic. What is a Catholic priest doing in the exorcism then? I follow your teaching that they're only the mind of God alone, and there is no such thing as demons. I don't understand why a Catholic priest sees in such a way. Thank you and love you eternally.
We love you too, and we'll just start from the beginning of this. The Kundalini energy is a spiritual kind of thing, but it is still illusion. So, at times there can be experiences with the Kundalini that may appear to be demonic, but is not demonic. So you can let that go. Obviously, you have reached that point of understanding. As far as exorcisms go, and the Catholic priests and all of that, that is a product of belief, you see. When you believe fully that but demons exist, and you have this great fear of them, most likely you'll experience it in some way, you see. The misunderstanding here is that the way to get rid of demons is to fight them, when really it's to laugh and shoo them off. Not necessarily easy when you have a very firm belief in them. Does this make sense?
Yes, it makes sense.
And so rituals were created that made the individual performing them feel more powerful than the demon, you see. And because of that belief and the experience, it worked. But that's because it's a belief. And when you have a firm belief in something, that belief supersedes it all, you see. Does this make sense?
Makes sense. Thank you.
Thank you.
The next question is from Michelle. And Michelle asks, Dear Jesus, I think that it's better to live a shorter life without any fear than a long life with fear. Can you elaborate on that statement?
Well, remember how we said that this plane of existence is a pressure cooker. It's a pressure cooker because you wanted to go through the contrast in order to come out like a diamond, you see. So shining brighter, more expanded version of you, you see. So you would be doing yourself a disservice to shorten that experience. Does that make sense? Not that you have to go through and continue on with uncomfortable things, but it's a learning to go through the things that are of contrast without overreacting and without making them bigger than they are, but just taking it step by step, remembering forgiveness and remembering to choose to look at it with the mind of peace rather than the mind of conflict. Does this make sense?
Yeah. So last night when I was meditating, I was like, hey, you just need to stop identifying to the person who is anxious and identify to the person that you want to be. So I'm facing my fears now, but it's interesting because I can look at it and it's pretty strong. I try to laugh about it and I'm like, okay, just let it go. And I try to open up every time it becomes active. So I like, are there any other tricks to let go of it quicker?
Well, yes. Let's see, so are you meditating on that?
Well, I did for a while.
Okay, so rather than meditating on that, meditate on beyond that.
Yeah. So now I try to like release everything because my body has a tendency to like contract. So now I try to meditate on, when I start my meditations, release, 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 and feel the energy everywhere. And now I'm just concentrating on just the void and just letting go and letting, whatever needs to happen. Is there a better trick?
There is a better, it's not a trick, we'll say. It's not a trick, but the better way, well, we won't even call it a better way because there is some value you might have with that kind of meditation and all that. We're not saying that there's anything wrong with it, but the quicker way, actually, is to live your life, be triggered by your experiences, and change your mind in the moment that you have these triggers come up.
Okay.
Does this make sense?
Yeah. So the next week should be fun because there's lots of them coming up. So just change your mind every time it comes up.
Yes.
Okay.
So it's a practice of awareness. It's a moving about your life in meditation, in the sense of focusing on remaining aware of your mind and which mind you are choosing, your right mind or your wrong mind. That can be felt with, am I resisting or am I accepting? Am I in peace or am I in conflict? Am I judging or am I letting go? You see, things like that.
Okay.
So your daily life is a meditation when you make it that, meaning you choose that as your purpose for living, you see.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. And earlier when you explained about the light being bright, I'm sorry, but the phone was ringing in the background. I got deconcentrated. Okay. But about is it better to live a shorter life? Can you just repeat that really quick?
Yes. So it's not about living a shorter life. It's about being present in the moment. It's about releasing your own ideas of how things should be. It's about releasing your opinions, so to speak. Well, they are opinions. Your concept of yourself, so that you can open yourself to the fullness of who you really are, you see.
Yeah. Okay. And the thought that came behind that question, it's kind of funny, but like my whole life, I've been protecting myself. So I'm like, okay, I gotta let go of that. So in my head, I was like, I'm gonna stop protecting myself and just be really present and enjoy life. But it's funny, because I still have lack of faith. So there's got to be a part of me that's like, if I'm stopping protecting myself, that's going to be the end of it.
Yes,
So that's where that question came from.
And that's a very good question, because that very question is actually a good, well, we'll say it's a good question because that feeling of, if I don't protect myself, then I'm not going to exist. I'm going to cease to exist. That's your ego, you see.
Yeah.
And the thing is, when you stop letting your ego protect you all the time, you drop your defense, then you are protected. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And no, it's not easy. And of course, you have to have that faith, but it does take practice. So you do it the little steps, you see.
Okay. So. And when I pray at night and I meditate, I often talk to you. Just because you're one of the most courageous people that I've known. So what were your tricks? Like, because I think you must have known what was coming. And I know you probably didn't identify with this as being real. But did you have any, just knowing it wasn't true, what was happening, coming up with the crucifixions, is saying, okay, this is a dream, and like really stepping back and being a witness of it all? Is that what helped you through it?
100%. It's not even that it helped me through it. It's the fact that I knew. And that's knew, or know, with a capital K, meaning this is not real. Whether the body feels pain, whether I am rejected, all of that is false, you see. And because I was not identified as the form, none of it mattered. You see, do whatever you want to this body. It is not me. Kill it. I am eternal. You'll see me again.
Okay. I'm going to practice.
Well, be easy on yourself too. But yes, indeed, just start looking more to identifying yourself as spirit, which is with eternity, with the eternal in you.
Yeah.
So
Thanks. So it's my summer project. I can't say that to everyone. What are you doing this summer? I'm practicing to be the light.
beautiful. But then you have to say, but it's not just a summer project, it's my
Yeah,
life project.
I know. Just get a little bit more time. Thanks.
Yes, you're welcome. Thank you.
The next question is from Mahesh. And Mahesh asks, Dear Master Jesus, I feel very grateful that I can listen to your loving messages every week. Feeling your loving presence and energy is beyond words. Sometimes I wish you were here in physical form. My question is, when I am in nature and see trees, animals, and earthly features like lakes and mountains, I feel peace, innocence, and beauty, but I don't have the same experience with most people. I am consciously practicing forgiving my past hurts and judgments of the ego, but the list seems never ending. It feels exhausting. I sometimes think I would have felt more love and joy if I were a tree or an animal on earth. Please help me see this from the right mind. So much love and gratitude to you.
And we have love for you too, of course. Okay, so yes, what you perceive trees and mountains to be is loving and peaceful all the time, and the desire to be that is just a desire to exemplify that feeling and the truth that you know is peace, you see. And as far as not being able to feel the same things with regular life, so to speak, or interactions with other humans and so on, that's normal, that's typical, but see, this is your classroom, you see, because it is in these classrooms that your greatest growth is had. So you get triggered with other people. That's a good thing. Not the fact that you get triggered and you have, not the fact that you get triggered, but it is a good thing because you can look at that trigger and say, where is this coming from? My right mind or my wrong mind? And in that awareness, you can then choose again, meaning you can choose to see it differently. Does that make sense?
Yes. The only issue seems to be, the mind or the ego seems to come up with this endless list of things that, trigger me. And sometimes the energy behind some of those, past trauma or judgments or whatever, it's really intense. And I feel kind of exhausted.
See, if it's the fact that you're looking at it with your ego. If you were looking at it with the Holy Spirit or with your true self, you wouldn't feel exhausted. You would just let it go. Does that make sense?
I guess that when I look at it right now, the intention is to some way resolve it or hope for resolving it. But from what I'm hearing, I just need to be and let it pass.
Right. Just be lighter about it. It's like these things just come and go. It's like clouds passing across an endless blue sky, you see. So you can either focus on the clouds and get distracted by them and get wrapped up in them, or you can look beyond them to the light and know that there is something beyond them. Does this make sense?
Yes.
So just be lighter on yourself about it. The reason why it feels so exhausting and why we were saying what we were saying about looking at it with your ego is because the ego is making a big deal out of it. But the ego is also part of you, you see. Remember the split mind. So in that moment that you notice that you're getting exhausted, say, I'm looking at this with my ego. Rather than continuing to even look at it, I'm just going to shake it off. I'm going to be lighter about it and just let it go. And just say, just let that go.
Yes, I don't have to go into it and consciously think these thoughts of forgiving. I just
You just
notice
forgive.
it's, yeah.
In fact, did you know that letting go of a thought and letting go of an interpretation is forgiving? Like, you don't have to say, I forgive this thought. It's just, I'm going to let this thought go.
Yes, makes sense.
Wonderful.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. So,
Okay, the next question is from Iris. Iris asks, what happens when we sleep? Are we still in the illusion, or are we closer to the true reality? My second, okay.
so are you closer to reality? No. Yes, you are still in the illusion. Yes, indeed. When you go to sleep, you simply release more from their physical activity, which makes you feel more free. Not all the time, though. Let's say you're very focused on a thought before you go to sleep that's got you all wrapped up in it. You're going to bring that with you into your sleep. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Which is why we want to suggest to everyone before you go to bed, do a little bit of releasing from your day. Letting go of all thoughts you had for the day, all experiences, just let them go. Sleeping is to rest your body, you see, but the mind never sleeps. But you still have active control on which mind you're working with. So before you go to bed, before you go to sleep, say, tonight I want to sleep in my right mind. I'm going to let my day go. And I'm going to open my mind to clarity, to peace, and to love, and to sanity. Does that make sense?
Yes. Yes.
Wonderful. So,
She has a second question, which is a struggle. I honor life and do what I can to preserve it by not disturbing it. So if I come upon a spider in the house, I bring it outside. We don't use pesticides. We love all creatures living in balance with the whole ecosystem. But for about 4 years, we've had a vast amount of Japanese beetles which tear up our plants. So we are killing them, and I struggle with that. What if someone has an overgrowth of a certain bacteria in their body? Is killing acceptable in such cases? I feel guilty to even ask that, which seems to trap me in the illusion of separation.
so yes, it's trapping you. The whole question is a trap, but here's how it can also be a release. You look at it, what's happening is you have made a hierarchy of illusion, you see. We teach there is no hierarchy of illusion. An illusion is an illusion. So what you perceive to be good insects are the exact same thing as what you consider bad insects. Insects are insects, all of which are illusion. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So as far as killing them, you have to see it differently. You want to live in harmony with the ecosystem. The ecosystem is an illusion. So what you want to do is find it in your mind to approach it all from a mind of peace, meaning no matter what you may have to do in the illusion, say to protect your plants, because we're going to say this, obviously, we're going to lighten it up here. The Japanese beetles don't want to live in harmony with your ecosystem. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So you would do the logical thing. I want to protect my plants. These insects are foreign and don't get along with my plants. Well, if I want to protect my plants, I have the right to dispose of the offending party, you see. But you do it not with seriousness, not saying, oh my God, I'm killing these bugs. You say, these bugs are killing my plants. They're part of, okay, these bugs are killing my plants. I want my plants to live. I'm going to protect my plants.
Yeah.
That doesn't make you a sinner. It doesn't make them a sinner either. It's just part of the illusion.
Yeah. I realized this the years before. I was not able to proceed with any kind of action, and I was just suffering in agony and going back and forth. And this year was different, and I was just not looking at it as a terrible thing. But then I thought, like, do I lie to myself? But this has so much clarified what you have just explained. Make it work in a peaceful way within the illusion. Yeah.
That's all it is.
Yeah.
It's the content of your mind. So if you're saying,
Yeah.
I want to be a good caretaker of my plants, the way for me to do that, I'm going to have to release these other insects that attack my plants. And that's all you're doing, is releasing them.
Yeah.
And so it's just
Thank you.
come at it from a mind of peace. And it's all good. So,
Thank you.
yeah. Wonderful.
Okay, the next question is from Philip. And Philip asks, is there any way to facilitate healing in another person and oneself that would be beneficial in terms of their physical, emotional, and spiritual healing other than seeing the Christ light or love and the divine God in the other person? Thank you for your love and wisdom. Many blessings for peace, love, and happiness.
Well, the only real healing is of the mind. And so a kind of healing that you're talking about, a physical healing, can also be healing for a mind that feels as though they're being neglected. Does that make sense?
No.
So you really want to be loving to the individual. Are you asking, is there a different way of doing it? Is that what you're asking?
Well, I'm asking if there's an alternative to just being the Christ or being the Christ light or love.
Not at all. That's the only way, but the form may differ, you see. But it's the content of your mind that stays the same. Does that make sense?
Yes, earlier you seemed to make a distinction between being separate and sending the light and love versus just being the light and love.
Exactly.
I assume the latter is more likely to facilitate healing than the former.
Yes, indeed. Absolutely, because that is the healing action, so to speak, is to be the light, not be the separate individual who has the light. You are the light, and so is everyone else. And so what you do is you choose to be the light in a way that shows everyone else that they too can choose that. Meaning they too can choose to be the light. But you do that through demonstration, not by teaching with words. Does that make sense?
There's a lot of healing modalities, like energy healing modalities. They talk about transmitting energy or love at a distance, but there's that implication of separateness first, you know.
Yes, it is.
So you're saying that limits the healing that's likely to take place, because whether you're sending healing energy or you're sending light or love, you're still perceiving yourself as separate first rather than just being the loving energy.
Right. So if you said, I'm going to send love and light because we are love and light, so I'm just going to join with the love and light with this individual who's not an actual individual but part of me as well, and I'm part of that one, and we're all just one, going to choose to be the light with them, rather than I am sending light to you because you have a problem and I don't.
Well,
Do you see the difference?
It's a subtle but powerful message, I think. Yeah, I get it.
Wonderful. The more
Thank
simple, the more powerful. So, thank you.
The next question is from Angela, who couldn't be here today, but she asks, I keep trying to understand how there are many of us and yet we are all one. Is there any way you can explain that to me, or is it impossible to put into words? Much gratitude.
So first of all, we'll just say it's impossible to put into words the true meaning of that. But we will say with words, there's a concept that you made, not just you, but everyone. When we say you, we're talking about you, the split mind, you, the mind, actually, made, that says we are separate individuals running around in this plane of existence where there is time and space. But really there is none of that. There is none of that. There is only one, you see. And so the way that we can explain this is it simply is. And there are no words. So, wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The next question is from Laura. And Laura asks, stuff is strange.
Yes, it is.
When swimming, I felt surrounded by the light of people who I learn course lessons from, connected to them even though they're still alive. I'm aware of energy from family members, love, though they're not alive. And you are there in that light. In my daily life though I'm kind of a flake. I let go of commitments because they matter less to me. I forget things. I couldn't care less about how I'm seen by my husband. I do try to be kind, but I can't figure out what to say. Is this the path or a path? Am I okay here? It's still hard for me to remember to choose which mind I see with. Thank you for helping me. I love you.
We love you too. So let's see. The first part about being able to feel those who have transitioned, they are not somewhere else, they are with you. And we are one, we'll say not they, but we are with you. Nobody is somewhere else, we are all one. And then as far as knowing what to say to your husband, just turn to the mind of love. What would love say? What would the mind of peace say? And what about just being normal? Does that make sense?
It does make sense. And I try to keep these things in my mind, in my right mind. But for example, just now, I feel like my saying I'm on a Zoom and I can't interact with you is causing pain or damage, or I comment sometimes about because I perceive that things are being neglected or the animals are being neglected, and so I feel like being normal is also being cruel in a way.
That's an idea. You see, there's a normal where you simply are kind and have compassion. That's normal. Mm-hmm. Then there's the ego's normal, which is being violent and aggressive. You have a choice between the two. You can be normal in your right mind, which is normal in truth, which is all loving, all kind, and all allowing, you see, and also non-judgmental. Then you have your other mind, which is your wrong mind, which says, I'm against everything and everything is against me. I'm having difficulties. They are doing that. That's wrong. This is wrong. you have to take a stand and all of that kind of thing, you see. When you choose a conflict over peace. When really, you have that choice. That's really what we want you to understand. You have a choice between how you perceive everything. Am I going to look at this situation from a mind of conflict, where I am judging, or am I going to see this with the mind of peace, which is the mind of acceptance, and just let it go, meaning I'm not going to judge? The only thing that I will see is that if I'm seeing cruelty, it's simply I'm looking at fear. I'm looking at a call for love, not a call for condemnation, not a call for judgment. Does this make sense?
It does, except in the sense when I feel that I'm choosing, like, for example, to be here now, to heal myself and allow myself time and energy to do what I need to do. Is that that still confuses me.
Well, you have to remember this.
Obviously.
You have to remember
Yeah.
this. All minds are joined. So if you have chosen to heal your mind, you take the steps towards the healing of your mind, you are doing this with all because minds are joined, you see. Rather than going the other direction, which is choosing to be in the world of separation, where you just keep yourself in conflict and everyone else as well.
I appreciate that. And it's so easy to do with people that I only interact with rarely, and it's more complicated at home, it feels. Although I know it doesn't need to be, but that's my experience.
Yes, it doesn't need to be, but you can look at these things when you have situations that get under your skin or trigger you in some way. That means it's a classroom. And that means it's time to step back and say, okay, Holy Spirit, I obviously do not know how to look at this. I'm going to exit the scene in my mind, and I want you to show me how to look at this. And we want you to realize this, that if it comes from the Holy Spirit, it's going to be, this is a call for love, not judgment. This is a call for peace and not aggression, and so on.
Thank you so much. I feel like every single thing you've said today, well, it's all for all of us, but it was for me too. And it's all pertinent. Everything's pertinent, right?
Yes, it is.
And every time I see love and experience, it's pertinent in myself or others, things, people, and you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, this is the last question, is from Neil. And Neil asks, Dear Jesus, when we last spoke, you said that my departed son, John, was being healed and that there was a lot to learn. Is he still having that experience? And what kinds of things is he learning? Also, some friends have said that his passing was, quote, meant to be. But is there truth in that? And if so, who meant it to be, and who or what planned it? I know death is not real, but what is going on here? Thanks very much.
So the first part of this that we will say is to that last part of the question that you heard from others that it was meant to be. It was meant to be. Why? Because it happened. Because you aren't to argue with your experience. It's something that seemed to occur in your experience, and you make peace with that, you see. But as far as, is he still learning? Of course, because you are also still learning, you see. Does this make sense?
Yes, it does make sense. But is that I'm wondering, like, is he going to decide to incarnate sometime? I mean, how long does the learning go on?
It depends. It really depends. And we can't tell you if he's going to reincarnate or not here. As we have said before, there are many places one can go in the mind, and that depends on what the intention is, you see. And sometimes it's that the mind wants to heal in other experiences. So, and he will not be the same necessarily, or he will not be the same period, meaning he will not reincarnate in the same body. Does that make sense?
Yes, but I find that kind of scary. Jesus, I'm scared by that concept. I don't want him to.
It's okay. It's okay. It's because you're looking at it from the level of body rather than the level of mind. If you look at it from the level of mind, you see this ever-expanding experience of love, because all of it is always love, you see. So there's nothing to fear at all, you see. And all that is being learned always is how to extend love even more, you see.
And I want to do that, and my wife wants to, and my family wants to do that. But you said last time too that we would hear from Johnny. But how will that manifest? Maybe, I mean, we don't. We had a tree planted for him, and I said, and it came out beautifully, and it's a beautiful tree. And I'm thinking, did you have something to do with that, Johnny? I mean, how?
Yes, he did. Yes, he did. It came out beautifully, and that's a form of communication to you. To say, I am thriving. You see.
He's telling us that?
Yes. And when we said that you will hear from him, we want to make it also clear to anyone who may be going through this as well. It may not be hearing from the individual the way that you would think. Meaning he may not come to you and talk to you like we are talking to you, or the way that your wife talks to you, or the way that he talked to you in form, but may come, as it did, we will say, in the form of the tree. Not that he is the tree, but he's using that tree to show you that he is thriving.
So we can pick on little positive, beautiful things, and we can feel his presence in them.
That is him.
Oh, that's beautiful. And just one other thing, Jesus, like, and like you said, we would see him again when we go to the next life.
Yes, you will.
But what if he chooses another life?
You'll see him. You'll see him, because the thing is, your real self is infinite. So even if you reincarnate somewhere, or you incarnate, we don't really talk about reincarnation, but incarnate. If you incarnate in form somewhere else, your mind is still this expansive presence and can reach you even when there is a part of it in form. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so we don't have to worry about missing the bus when we
exactly.
He'll be there when we get.
Yes, he will.
That's so beautiful, Jesus. Thank you so much. Thank you. God
You're
bless
very welcome.
you.
Absolutely. So it looks like we are at the end of our session today. It has been wonderful to join with all of you today. All is well, always. Remember what we said at the beginning. It's about waking up from this dream of separation. And that entails an active willingness to choose to release the identity that you made, that makes you think, or that you chose to think, that you could ever be separate, because you aren't separate and you can't ever be. So release your resistance to love. We love you, and we are always with you, and all is well. And thank you all. Namaste.